Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Azerbaijan says it has liberated 3 more villages and several strategic heights from Armenia during the fighting over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. In a tweet, Azeri President Ilham Aliyev said the army's successful operations are ongoing in the region. Meanwhile, Armenia's Ministry of Defense claims the fighting has slowed down because of international pressure. In Kyrgyzstan, protesters rejected the country's parliamentary election results, have broken into parliament in the capital Bishkek. They also stormed into security headquarters and freed former President Almazbek Atambayev from the custody. The Health Ministry says a person has been killed while over 500 injured in clashes with the police. Meanwhile, opposition has appointed their own acting interior minister, head of national security and the prosecutor general. United States envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says Afghans should not let the opportunity for peace slip away. Khalilzad and General Austin S. Miller met with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and the Taliban leadership in Qatar. The Taliban spokesman Dr. Muhammad Naeem said the two sides discussed the implementation of the DOHA agreement. United States President Donald Trump has returned to the White House to continue his treatment for coronavirus after a 3-night hospital stay. America's COVID-19 death toll has crossed 210,000 with over 7.4 million cases. India has reported 884 deaths and over 61,000 infections in the past 24 hours, bringing the cases tally to 6.8 million. Here in Pakistan, 6 people have died overnight, taking the death toll to 6,523. Globally, the coronavirus infections tally nears 35.4 million, with over 1 million deaths. News in detail coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. We'll start from Azerbaijan, which says it has liberated 3 more villages and several strategic heights from Armenia during the fighting over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Azeri President Ilham Aliyev said the army's successful operations are ongoing in the region. Meanwhile, Armenia's Ministry of Defense claims the fighting has slowed down because of international pressure. Earlier, Turkey said Armenian forces are committing war crimes by targeting civilians. Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said it took the matter up in a meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. The NATO chief called for a ceasefire as the death toll from the clashes continue to rise. Now, in Kyrgyzstan, protesters rejecting the country's parliamentary election results have broken into parliament in the capital Bishkek. The Health Ministry says a person has been killed while over 500 injured in clashes with police.
The protesters also stormed into security headquarters and freed former President Almazbek Atambayev from custody. Police used tear gas and water cannons as protesters attempted to enter the government building. President Soronbay Janbekov has called the development a bid by some political forces to seize power illegally. In a statement, Janbekov urged his opponents to stop protest, saying he has ordered security forces not to use force. The president reiterated his readiness to annul the contested parliamentary election results. Meanwhile, opposition has appointed their own acting interior minister, head of national security and prosecutor general. Birimjik and Makanim Kyrgyzstan's parties looked set to dominate the parliament after polls, but Western observers say the election had been marred by vote buying.
Now, US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says Afghan should not let the opportunity for peace slip away. Khalilzad and General Austin S. Miller met with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and the Taliban leadership in Qatar. In a series of tweets, Khalilzad said violence in the country is too high and too many Afghans are dying. He said the US is pressing for a significant reduction in the violence that will lead to a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire. The Afghan president's spokesman said both sides stressed on availing the peace opportunity for ending the war. Meanwhile, the Taliban spokesman Dr. Mohammed Naeem said the two sides discussed the implementation of the DOHA deal. United States President Donald Trump has returned to the White House to continue his treatment for coronavirus after a three-night hospital stay. Over in India, another 884 people have died and over 61,000 tested positive in the past 24 hours. While globally, the coronavirus infection tally has crossed 35.4 million with over 1 million deaths. Details in this report.
The new coronavirus continues to take thousands of lives and infect over hundreds of thousands every day. The outbreak is most aggressive in the US, India and Brazil, which account for half of global deaths and cases. America's New York State is imposing new restrictions in virus hotspots as clusters re-emerge. The country's death toll has crossed 210,000 with over 7.4 million cases. But President Trump, after returning from hospital, urged all Americans not to confine themselves to their homes.
And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines, all developed recently. And you're going to beat it. I didn't feel so good. And 2 days ago, I could have left 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I felt great, like better than I have in a long time. I said just recently, better than 20 years ago. Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives.
Meanwhile, in Europe, an increase in the number of hospitalizations and deaths is prompting governments to impose more restrictions. The UK has recorded over 12,000 new coronavirus cases, almost double the daily rate at which new cases were running last week. Amid rising cases, Ireland's Prime Minister Michael Martin has refused to follow the advice of health chief to impose a lockdown. In Australia, cases have been rising again in Victoria, the country's virus hotspot.
There are 216 active cases of coronavirus in Victoria. That's 15 new cases since my update yesterday. 8 of those 15 are linked to known outbreaks and complex cases. 7 are under investigation by our public health team. 2 cases were reclassified. There have now been 807 deaths due to this global pandemic. I'm sad to report that is an increase of 1 since yesterday.
In Southeast Asia, the virus still paints a grim picture as India cases tally exceeds 6.8 million with over 102,000 deaths. In Iran, nearly all of the country has been put on red alert as the infections and fatalities have hit record levels. In Malaysia, Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has quarantined himself for 14 days after his cabinet minister tested positive for the virus.
Well, now in Pakistan, 6 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 during the last 24 hours, which raises the death toll to 6,523. The Health Ministry says 467 people tested positive in a day. The ministry said there are 8,588 total active cases in the country. It said out of over 315,000 cases, more than 300,000 have recovered so far. The ministry said over 138,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while over 100,000 reported in Punjab so far. The National Command and Operations Centre says 86 people across the country are on ventilators. There are no COVID-19 patients on ventilators in Balochistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Moving on now, Israeli forces have shot dead a Palestinian youth in the occupied West Bank's Tulkarm city. Palestine's media says the young man bled to death while lying on the road after sustaining wounds from gunfire. The media said after the incident, Israeli soldiers set up a checkpoint at the entrance of the town and carried out aggressive raids. A large number of Israel's infantry troops are deployed in the farmland surrounding the nearby town. Earlier, Israel also carried out airstrikes against a Hamas site in the Gaza Strip. Israel's military spokesperson said the strike was a retaliation to a rocket fired from Gaza. Now, Ankara has accused Ottawa of following a policy of double standards after Canada suspended drones export to Turkey. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said there is no explanation of blocking defence equipment exports to a NATO ally. While Canada does not see any harm in exporting arms to countries that have military involvement in the Yemen crisis, it said Ottawa should act without being influenced by those opposed to Ankara. Earlier, Canada halted the export of drone technology to Turkey after its claims of its use by Azeri forces in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. Foreign Minister Francois Philippe said, in line with Canada's export control regime, Ottawa has suspended the relevant permits to Turkey. While also Turkey says it supports NATO's initiative to reduce Eastern Mediterranean tensions despite Greece's negative behavior. The NATO allies Ankara and Athens have been at odds over drilling claims in the rich waters. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan received NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg in Ankara. Turkey's communications directorate quoted Erdogan as saying Ankara respects the rights and interests of both itself and its NATO allies. The president said Turkey expects the same from its allies. In a tweet, Stoltenberg said the two sides had a good discussion on a range of security issues, including deconfliction mechanism. Meanwhile, the European Union has welcomed the return of a Turkish drill ship to port. A European Union spokesperson said the move will help ease tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged world powers to keep working towards lasting ceasefire in Libya. In a virtual meeting co-hosted by United Nations and Germany, Guterres called for backing a UN arms embargo against Libya. He said the violations of the embargo are a scandal and called into question the commitment to peace for all involved. Guterres said peace efforts must be supported not only in words but in actions as well. While German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas expressed hope the conflict in Libya can now be resolved. He said there has been a recent shift in thinking from military to political logic. The summit comes amid international pressure on Libya's warring sides to hold off attack on the strategic city of Sirte. Now, Russia has welcomed the recently signed JUBA peace agreements between Sudan's government and the rebel groups. In a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry said the peace deal is an important step towards national reconciliation in Sudan. The statement also underscored the role played by Sudan's President Salva Kiir in facilitating the peace talks. The JUBA peace agreement addresses issues ranging from military affairs to the return of refugees, but demonstrators have blocked the country's southern seaport, rejecting the peace deal. The protesters say the deal serves foreign interest and ignores the concerns of the locals. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has hailed new Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, calling him a force for good. Talking to media in Japan, Pompeo said he believes Suga will work to strengthen Washington and Tokyo's relations. Pompeo said he agrees with Suga that a free and open Indo-Pacific is the foundation of regional peace and stability. The U.S. Secretary of State will meet Suga for the first time since he took office. Pompeo is in Tokyo for a meeting of foreign ministers of the US, Japan, Australia and India. The meeting of the Quad group comes at a time of intense tensions between Washington and Beijing. Now, 5 people have died after Tropical Storm Gamma lashed the southeastern Mexico. The storm smashed the Yucatan Peninsula coast with near hurricane-force winds. Gamma left behind a trail of destruction, forcing thousands to evacuate. In southern Chiapas state, a landslide buried 4 people after heavy rains. In the Tabasco state, a person drowned while trying to cross an overflowing river. Authorities said Gamma has left more than 600,000 people affected in Mexico's Gulf Coast and flooded several homes. According to the U.S. National Hurricane Center, Gamma is the 24th storm of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. Also, at least 4 people have died in floods and heavy rains in southern France. A spokeswoman for the Alpes Maritime Prefecture said up to 18 people are missing. Authorities said the missing include 2 firemen whose vehicles were carried out by the swollen river. Southern France has been lashed by torrential rain over the weekend. This has led to swollen rivers sweeping away houses, bridges and parts of roads. Storm Alex has ravaged several villages around the city of Nice on the French Riviera. Earlier, Nice Mayor Christian Estrosi called it the worst flooding disaster in the area for more than a century. Now, stocks in Asia Pacific are trading higher after the Reserve Bank of Australia kept its current policy setting on hold. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index advanced by nearly 1% lead to the gains. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 and the Topix Index have both gained nearly 0.5%, while South Korea's Kospi has advanced more than a half. The ASX 200 in Australia has added fractionally. MSCI's broadest index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan has so far risen more than 0.5%. Markets in China are closed for a holiday. With that, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.